Welcome, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm really excited to yap about books with you. I have not done a wrap-up video for all of 2025, so I have a lot of amazing and really fun books to share with you guys. This year, I have found some of my most favorite books. I found my first 6-star read, then I found another one. I learned a lot about my preferences as far as reading is concerned. Let's just jump right in. You'll notice that I have been going back and reading a lot of books that have been popular for maybe quite some time because I am late to the hype. I'm not a trendsetter girly. I'm just trying to keep up over here. No, joking, but I feel like I did get into reading. I mean, I've been into reading for a while, but I do feel like I got into booktube and book talk a little bit later. I was just reading books that I found at Target or heard my friends talking about. And so some of the more like popular books I hadn't read yet. So there'll be a lot of that. But first, one thing I was not behind on the times with was Onyx Storm. This was the first book I read of the year, so highly anticipated. The third book in the Empyrean series, as I'm sure you know, following Violet and Xaden. And there were some really mixed reviews on this book. Honestly, I tried to not even check out a lot of reviews on it because I hear a lot just by word of mouth, but I heard often that people were like confused when they started the book. And I have to say that I was not confused when I read it. I wasn't sure what the confusion was about per se, but that wasn't the experience that I had. I really, really enjoyed this book. I honestly wasn't sure after Iron Flame what would really go down in this book. I thought that maybe there wouldn't be as much romance just given the circumstances that we were going to be in this third one. But I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. Like, there was still a good amount of romance. There was still that tension, that just like, I'm a romance girly through and through. Obviously this is like romantasy, but I came from romance, dabbled in romantasy, and like I don't really read fantasy that has no romance in it. So like that's what I'm here for, and the fantasy element definitely like adds another level to it. So that's really cool. But I was happy to see that these circumstances did not take away from that aspect of Violet and Xaden. So that was really happy for me. I will also say that Rebecca Yarros is the queen of cliffhangers. There's always a good cliffhanger at the end of her books, and yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this. It lived up to my expectations, to be honest. So I gave it 5 stars, same as Iron Flame, same as Fourth Wing. It was 5-star worthy to me. And then I read a book I had been avoiding. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I'm sure you all have heard about this one too because it is maybe more popular than Fourth Wing. I don't know, definitely same tier, I would think. But I created a whole video on A Court of Thorns and Roses about why I almost DNF'd it. I almost DNF'd it around literally the 75% mark. So I started the book and I literally remember texting my friend and I was like, this is boring. But I hadn't gotten to like the inciting incident even yet. So she was like, keep reading. And so I kept reading, So I kept reading, and yes, things definitely got better. And I was enjoying it until the 75% mark. And then things got worse. And it was just really dark and I wasn't expecting it. It was such a vibe shift. I wasn't about it. But then you know who really comes to the forefront, and he got me through it. He got me through it. He got Farrah through it. He got me through it. And the book ended up being really good. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm glad I continued reading. And I was really glad I continued reading when I started A Court of Mist and Fury. I mean, if you don't like A Court of Thorns and Roses, read it just for this book. Like, you will not be disappointed. This book, I think I remember when I left my Fable review, I was like, I don't know how any book will top this. And I stand by that. Like, this was my first ever 6-star read. It is so good to me. Just seeing the healing and the growth and the romance bloom in this book. It was really beautiful. I'm obsessed. First 6-star book. Sarah J. Maas killed it. She's an amazing writer. I've got no notes. Then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I promise that I read other books besides the ACOTAR series, but I gotta roll through these first because this is honestly what I read this year. I loved A Court of Mist and Fury for the romance, and I loved A Court of Wings and Ruin for the family. I genuinely think that Sarah J. Maas did such a good job with The Court of Dreams. Like, I love every single member. They're all really thought out and well-developed characters with really interesting backstories, and we get to learn so much about them. Like, these books feel like they're following the whole family, including the Archeron sisters. Like, the thought and the detail that went into creating this world is so immense. Like, I can't even grasp it. As somebody who is attempting to write a book, as somebody who is writing a book, her talent is unparalleled. Like, so amazing with her character building, because like I said, I loved every single one of them. I can't even think straight. I really did. I loved them collectively. Ever since reading this, I've noticed secondary characters more and have like paid attention to how I feel about them and how developed and detailed their backstory is and how involved they are, because I'm like, the found family in this is so good. So I also gave this one 6 stars, which I will say, if I had to pick a favorite, it's A Court of Mist and Fury, but I gave them both 6 stars because they're both amazing in their own way. Love, love, love. And then I took a break from the ACOTAR series and I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. This book follows Rhett and Summer. Rhett is a professional bull rider and Summer is his agent's daughter. Now, Rhett makes a mistake, to be honest. He makes a mistake and it's not very good for his PR. And so his agent assigns his daughter to quote unquote babysit him. There unfolds the story from there. Obviously there's some forced proximity, there's enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine. He's not very happy about the situation, as you can expect. And I was really looking forward to this going into the book. I enjoy going to a rodeo myself. I enjoy the idea of a cowboy, but this book focused a lot on the smut. Actually, I think in my Fable review, I wrote, this is pure smut. I wanted to see their relationship outside of the bedroom. Like, I feel like there's so much that could have gone down with this dynamic. There's more like actual plot that could have happened, but it was all about the physicalness of it. That is just not for me. That's not the type of book that I enjoy reading. If you enjoy smut, this would probably be more so for you, but in the end, I gave it 3 stars. After that little palette cleanser, I went back to the ACOTAR series and I picked up A Court of Frost and Starlight. This is the little novella that follows the Court of Dreams around, what's it called? Around the winter solstice. I really enjoyed this. I know that a lot of people have called it like, oh, it's pointless, which do I think is essential to the plot? No, but I think that it offers this really cool opportunity to get a glimpse into the characters in their day-to-day life, which normally when a book wraps up, it's like conflict over, resolution achieved, and then we move on and we don't get to see the quiet moments in their lives. And so I think this was a really good opportunity to do just that. And with how much love there is from me, and I would assume everybody else, for the Court of Dreams, what a fun opportunity to spend time with that family. So I gave it a 5 stars. And I mean, compared to all the other 5 stars on my list, does it compare? Maybe, maybe not. But to me, like, I'm always rating a book based on what it is. So for a novella, it's 5 stars for me. When you compare it to something else, okay, it might hold up differently, but I'm always rating a book for what it is. You know what I mean? Hope that makes sense. And then last but not least, for the ACOTAR series, not for what I read this year, is A Court of Silver Flames. This is a book that follows Cassian and Nesta, and I honestly was not looking forward to it as much because I was so worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much because it wasn't about Feyre and Rhys. But I have to say, I loved this book way more than I thought I would. This whole series, obviously, I've loved. It is my new favorite book series, spoiler, if you couldn't already tell. I just loved how this book followed Nesta's pain and healing in such a genuine and honest and real way. I felt like how she was dealing with her trauma was so authentic, and I really respect that journey that she went on and respect how Sarah J. Maas portrayed it. I also love the emphasis on female friendships. I think that is so, so, so important and sometimes can get lost in romance novels, although I think that modern romance novels do emphasize the importance of female friendships, but this book, it was so apparent. Also, just this idea that we're stronger together and just supporting one another in that friendship and togetherness. So in the end, when I was rating this book, I originally did not give it 5 stars. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. And then I sat on it, and the way that the book was still staying with me a week later, I went back and I edited it and I was like, this is a 5-star book. It was a 5-star book. The only reason that I didn't give it 5 stars initially is because there were some parts where they were a little bit slower, and I kind of was like looking ahead to be like, okay, how long is this scene? Like, I'm ready to get past it. But even those scenes, like, they served a purpose. They were there for a reason. And just because they weren't as like action-packed or as captivating as some of the other moments, they were part of the story that captured me. That was really beautiful. And I cried several times reading this book. Like, emotionally, it hit me to the core. It deserves every single one of its 5 stars. I just had to sit with it and process it and realize how much it had affected me to get to that point. Okay, and then after that, I read The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. Just noticed, I think there's a Zaxby's commercial on the TV. I quite honestly only read this book because I got a free trial for Kindle Unlimited, and I was looking through my Kindle trying to see what was there, and there wasn't really anything that was grabbing my attention. This was the only thing that really stood out, and so I didn't know a whole lot about it going into it. I just picked it up because it was there. I wanted to get something out of my Kindle Unlimited membership. I didn't want to have it and like not read anything. Essentially, this book is about Gigi and Ryder. They both are hockey players. They go to the same college. It's interesting because I didn't know a lot about this book going into it. It said it was the first book in a series, which is the Off-Campus series. I didn't realize that the Off-Campus series is a spin-off of the On-Campus series, which follows Garrett Graham, and he's like essentially hockey royalty. And so Gigi Graham is his daughter. And so the Graham Effect follows her and Ryder. And like I said, they're both college hockey players. And Ryder has made a really bad impression with Garrett Graham, Gigi's father, but he wants to impress him. And Gigi is struggling. She wants to make the Women's USA team, but she has a few weaknesses in her hockey playing technique. And so they team up. Gigi's gonna help Ryder win favor with her father, and he is going to help her overcome some of her difficulties in the game. I enjoyed this book, but there was a lot of language in it, and there was also a lot of emphasis on the physicality. And I feel like maybe cowboy and sports romances are not for me because those two subgenres seem to have a lot of language and emphasis on the smut. Like, they're more physical. There's also swearing. And again, those are just not my preferences. So while this was entertaining, I only rated it 3 stars again. So it wasn't bad. It just wasn't my preference. It was a little palate cleanser, but yeah, I don't enjoy reading those style of books. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you are more into that, you may enjoy this book more. Okay, I just shifted ever so slightly. We're starting to fight this on a little bit as it sets, but the next book that I read was The Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood. This book like blew up, and I actually tried to start reading it a while back, but I don't even think I got through the first chapter, and I was like, this is not for me. But I was still super curious about it, so I decided to try to pick it up again, and I finished it this time. If you're not familiar with the book, it follows Delphi. Delphi actually passes away, and she goes into kind of like purgatory, but not how you might traditionally think of purgatory, but it's like the waiting room to get into the afterlife. And in the waiting room to get to the afterlife, she meets this man. And then she gets this proposition that she can go back to Earth, but she has to meet this man and get him to kiss her willingly within a certain time frame. I think it's only like 10 days. It's a very short amount of time. It's a very unique premise and honestly really interesting, and I think that's why I came back to it, because I was intrigued. But I will say the writing style of this book is a little bit different. There's a lot of pop culture references, and it can be a little bit like over the top in some ways, and that might make people less interested or maybe annoy them a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what other people feel like, but to me, it was silly, it was over the top, but it was what it was supposed to be. Like, it was fun, it was playful. That's how I interpreted it, and I enjoyed it. I think it worked for the story. Personally, I don't need all the like pop culture references, but I think it adds to it in a way, like that playfulness of it. And for a plot that seems so serious, like it kind of juxtaposes that. And it didn't feel like a heavy book. In fact, it was such a feel-good book. The amount that I loved this book crept up on me. Like, I didn't realize until after I finished it how much I adored it. I really, truly did. Like, I wanted it to keep going. I was like, can I have more? So I think that the silliness, the lightheartedness, like it all worked so well together, and it left me feeling exactly how I want to feel after I finish a book. Like, I walked away warm and fuzzy. And to me, that's a 5-star read. Sticking on the train of lighthearted books, the next thing I read was Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. I'm a big Annabelle Monaghan fan. I believe that I gave her other 2 books 5 stars each. This book follows Sam and Wyatt. Sam and Wyatt actually were together in high school. Sam is now 30. She is engaged to a doctor. She's living in Manhattan. Everything is kind of the way it should be, although there's a chance she might get fired. But other than that, like, her job's good and she's got it all together. Her and her fiance returned to Long Island near a family home to tour venues for their wedding, and Wyatt so happens to be there next door where his family's home is. As you can imagine, things unfold from there. This book is told in like past and present timelines. And I have to say, I have realized that I do not enjoy books in past and present timelines as much as stories just told in the present. This has been like a reoccurring theme for me. And what I really felt when reading this book was that I wanted to read more about Sam and Wyatt in the present. There was so much of their childhood romance that it kind of was like, it was cute, they were kids, but I wanted to hear more about them rediscovering each other. Because from high school to 30, you change so much. And I think that it would have been really beautiful to see more of like what stayed the same, what changed, them still loving each other even with the growth that happened over a decade. So that's my only feedback on this, although it was cute. I love Annabelle Monaghan's writing thoroughly. I ended up giving this 4 stars, so still a really solid rating, and I would highly recommend it for a sweet summer read. After that, we went back into romantasy, and I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which is a YA romantasy novel. It is the first book in a trilogy, super popular. Again, I'm sure you've heard of it. It follows Peyton Gray, who is ordinary, and in this elite society where people have powers, being ordinary is like a death sentence. They're not supposed to exist. They are not welcome in the elite kingdom. Peyton unknowingly saves the enforcer, who is the person who is supposed to rid the kingdom of the ordinaries. And in doing so, she gets selected to be part of the trials, which are supposed to be an honor to be a part of. They're for the elite people, and so nobody knows she's an ordinary being thrown into this elite purging trial. And guess who is also in them? The enforcer. So as you can imagine, a lot goes down after that. This book is very similar to me to The Hunger Games, but it has a lot more emphasis on the romance between Peyton and Kai. It's told in dual point of view, and I liked this book. It didn't bother me that it was so similar to Hunger Games because it had its own spin on it. It had a ton of banter. If you like banter and enemies to lovers, you will probably enjoy this book, to be honest. I gave it 5 stars. It hooked me. I was sucked in. I needed to know what happened next. And then when I finished, I needed to immediately read the next book. And in fact, I love the book so much that I already lent it to my best friend, which is why I don't have it here to show you. So as I alluded to, after I read Powerless, I had to move right into book 2. In fact, I believe, did I pick it up the same day I finished the first book? I don't remember, but it was quick. I honestly wish I didn't read this so soon after the first one, because it went downhill for me. It really did, you guys. It was like I was on cloud 9 with Kai and Peyton, their banter, the tension, the enemies who hadn't become lovers yet. And then Reckless happened. And to be honest, I feel like these books weren't even written by the same person. Like, the writing changed. Well, that's true when it isn't. So the banter, I actually felt like, was very repetitive to the first book. I was ready for their relationship to move on to the next level and to kind of move beyond this playful banter that was a little bit avoidant of actually being honest and real. And it didn't happen. So it felt very repetitive. So in that way, like, yes, the writing was the same, but I felt like the attention to detail and just some of the thoughtfulness, it didn't feel maybe as well developed as the first book. That's what I'll say. But I started to feel a lot differently about Kai and Peyton, and that was sad to me since I was loving them so much in the first book. I won't say too much. The next thing I'm posting after this video is a full video of me reading the Powerless series. So Fearless just came out not too long ago. It's only been last week since I'm filming this. It was last week. And I have been just powering through this series. I'm maybe halfway through Fearless right now. So the next thing I will post will be a really in-depth reading vlog, spoiler-free, of me going through the series. So if you are interested in hearing my full thoughts on this, about what I'm thinking about Fearless, go ahead and subscribe. But with that being said, if you can't tell, you're caught up to current day, because after Reckless, I'm reading Fearless. All right, you guys, that is a wrap on reviewing the 12 books I have read so far this year. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, comment below what your favorite book that I reviewed is. And if there's one of these books you haven't read that you really want to read, let me know what's next on your TBR, what you want to add to your TBR. And I'll see you guys next time.